Dobrý večer, já už tady stojím takto na začátku měsíce autorského čtení v pořadí o 15. To ale není nic proti tomu, protože někteří z vás tady budou každý večer až 11:30 jenom v tomhle měsíci. Tak bude mnohem větší odvaha. Letos přijedou na měsíc autorského čtení, budou tu těmi čestnými hosty spisovatelky a spisovatele ze Skotska, takže se můžeme těšit na 31 skotek a skotů. Myslím, že je to mimořádná zajímavá příležitost, zvlášť pro některé, kteří se rádi ptají na naši mateřskou zem, třeba Moravu, tak to určitě naskýtá možnost spousty zajímavých dobrodružných besed a krásného povídání až skoro do rána, tak na to se velmi těšíme. A my tady s Pavlem Řoříkem před těmi zahraničními liniemi příliš často nestáváme. Pavel tady nesmí vůbec někde se schoval, ale dnes nestáváme tady většinou proto, protože nevíme skoro žádný jazyk a bylo by to zbytečné. Ale je mou ctí, abych tady přivítal Filipa Trlíka, který bude vás provádět jedním ze 2 ze 3 provaděčů. Tak poprosím Filipe, jestli bys mohl na chviličku. To je on tady s vámi těch 31 večerů bude skoro celou dobu. To je takový náš český průvodce skotským světem a já mu předám slovo a vlastně večer a žezlo a vám přeju, aby se vám nejen dnešní večer, ale celý 15. měsíc autorského čtení líbil. Díky.
Dobrý večer, já vás tu vítám taky, za mě jako za tlumočníka hlavně. A já vám vlastně na začátek představím autorku. Nevím, jak moc jste studovali, co všechno dělá, co všechno umí, co všechno vydala a co všechno ještě vydá. A jmenuje se Kirstin Innes a je spisovatelka a žurnalistka a také PR agentka, která žije v Glasgow. A tam okolo Glasgow se také točí ta její tvorba. Její povídky vyšly v magazínech, které se jmenují Counter Magazine, New Writing Scotland a v antologii nakladatelství Cargo Press nazvané The Year of Open Doors. V této antologii můžete vlastně najít i povídku od Alana Bissetta, který bude číst zítra. V roce 2008 dostala ocenění Scottish Arts Council New Writers Award, tedy cenu Skotské rady pro umění pro nové autory. V současné době sbírá materiál na svůj druhý román, o kterém vám možná nakonec řekne něco sama, ale zdánlivě by mělo jít o román ze světa korporátního PR. Na začátku příštího roku, tedy roku 2015, vyjde její dílo Fishnet, což je román o prostituci a tom průmyslu ve Skotsku. Otázka sexuality je jedním z hlavních motivů jejich povídek a kromě sexuality také se zabývá otázkou dnešního Skotska a takové té národní identity. A hlavně Kirstin Innes je především autorka, která se aktivně účastní autorských čtení a sama i autorská čtení pořádá. Nazývá se to Words per Minute a to je také jedna z věcí, o které bychom se mohli pobavit po tom jejím čtení. Vystoupila na řadě festivalů po celé Británii, četla v rádiu BBC4 a v rádiu BBC Scotland a účastnila se i festivalů v Číně a v Austrálii. A dnes je tady v Brně. A to je asi tak zatím všechno, co bych vám o ní řekl. Jenom vlastně upozorním nebo zmíním, že aby podpořila to své dílo, tak vám pustí, jestli to vyjde, tak vám pustí video, ukázku skotské reklamy, abyste vlastně si udělali představu, o čem ta povídka přesně je, nebo čeho se tak jako dotýká. Takže já vás poprosím, abyste přivítali Kirstin Innes.
Já jsem Kirstin, mrazí mě to, ale nemluvím česky. So, English. I'm going to show a short video before I read my first story. This video is an advert that was created by a London advertising agency lot about how they see Scotland, I think. So, okay.
Selecting your beef is like choosing a man. Glenn comes from Scotland. He's lean, fit, and dare I say, quite tasty. But like John dear, we can't guarantee every man is the same. Glenn eats the best possible food and drinks the freshest water. But again, we can't guarantee every man does the same. So, who would you rather pick up while you're shopping?
Specially selected Scotch beef, raised the way you want it.
So, this first story is called Beefcake. You should always arrange to meet in a neutral, busy, public place. That was the first thing they told you, and they'd say it again and again throughout the application process till it's stuck in your head like an advertising jingle. A neutral, busy, public place. She always suggested train stations would arrive 15 minutes early because nobody likes to feel they're being stood up and stand... Oh, shall I wait for those? A neutral, busy, public place. She always suggested train stations would arrive 15 minutes early because nobody likes to feel they're being stood up and stand in the same place by the door of the same newsagent chain. She would finger the red flower in her lapel and raise her eyes up to the same hoardings whether she was in Edinburgh or Dundee or Aberdeen or Perth. Glenn was there to greet her today, as he sometimes was, thick-lashed, bovine placid. They did like to throw him at the tourists. Across the concourse above her head, a young female rump, one pert, spherical buttock wriggling playfully out from underneath a pair of tiny, pale lemon shorts, pushed a chain of luxury gyms. Men's eyes flicked up and over the arse, an automatic reaction, and their women trailing along behind with the kids and the luggage, already guilt-greased by January, would catch them, would flinch. Glenn alone looked straight ahead. They'd been introduced a couple of years ago by the same expensive-sounding English woman who breathed oozy luxury over the Marks and Spencer's adverts. Glenn is from Scotland, the woman had told her, cleaving him up in appreciation. He's lean, fit, and dare I say it, rather tasty. Glenn had smiled and turned and stomped off across an actual Glen into a sunset, the camera clinging to his pecs through his t-shirt before zooming friskily up his kilt for a cheeky wee glimpse of taut thigh meat. Glenn was that antiseptic kind of tall, dark and handsome you got in catalogues, not a streak of the badness in him. That's a nice boy, her mum would have said, on the sofa with a bottle while she curled up in embarrassment. Aye, Debbie, you could do worse than a man like that, hen. Not her type, not at all. Still, something had made her lean close to the television screen, inhaling the alcohol back off her own home-thickening accent. Glenn. Glenn. It's not actually a traditionally Scottish name, is it? Glenn took it, though, just kept on tucking appreciatively into a perfectly rare state. On the split screen, his spotty, grey-skinned co-star still chips down his top. John here doesn't take such good care of himself, the posh lady said, as housewives on sofas across the country giggled audibly. Tee-hee, aren't men dreadful? All except for Glenn and his fine Highland meat, and the logo came up, Eat Scotch Beef. At her back, a small dry cough. Excuse me, Olivia? The voice was educated Edinburgh, one of the good fee-paying schools, and then possibly Glasgow University, now working in law or finance, at least 50. She adjusted the shape of her mouth to the necessary accent and turned around. He was smaller than her in her heels, and thinner than you'd think from that well-fed rotary club of a voice, fine gingery down over a freckled scalp, dark crimson rosebud tucked into a classy grey suit. Charles, hello. She always got them with the accent. Let them speak first, then sand it down or buff it up till they were equals. No one was intimidated, no one felt superior. Before this, she'd laughed in pubs with people, said over and over, oh, my accents are right tart, ha ha, ha ha. His eyes did the familiar sweep, the tits, legs, face, then stuck, bulging at something above her head, the pale lemon bum. Anyway, yes, right, let's just, Are we taking a cab? We are, yes. Glenn saw them silently off from his brightly lit silver frame, his sleeve rolled up to reveal hefty forearm curled casually on a fence. Beside him, the aftershot, a burly prime steak, sex pink at the centre, sliced and curled casually on a plate. Christ, they weren't even pretending anymore. She savoured the richness of the idea, still bloody on her tongue. She was hungry. Charles ushered her across the concourse and into a taxi, one small hand nudging the curve of her back to hurry her. He climbed up into the cab first, neither held the door nor offered to help her with her tiny overnight case, just snapped a policeman right at the driver. Sitting down, they were the same height. Silence. Head modestly down, kept her smile neutral and her face small, just let him project whatever he wanted on. His voice snapped out and she jumped. So, I understand that you have worked as a model. They always asked that because she put it on her profile. It got good responses. Men liked models. And it wasn't really a lie, not too much of a lie. Commercial work, mostly. Mistake. That nippy week off again, and this time there was all the judgment of the Church of Scotland Assembly in it. As if he couldn't contain himself, his mind nudging, winking and teasing every dirty possible innuendo out of the word commercial. Book covers, she said, stock photography sites, jewellery sometimes. The words just sat there in the cab between them, not quite covering her. Her stomach rumbled. So what do you do, Charles, for a living? Why would you want to know that? Because I'm interested. He just looked at her. Sorry. But you're quite right, of course. Absolutely none of my business. He indicated the menu. Shall we just... She kept smiling. That was the other thing they repeated. Keep smiling. Keep smiling. It was a good-looking menu, to be fair. We'll have the 87 Burgundy, he said. Same businessy tone he'd dealt the driver. No starters. I'm going to have the confit of duck. And for the The waiter was trying his hardest not to hold back a smirk. Oh, honey, she thought, now you've given us both away. He coughed, reddened, straightened up. Perhaps the monkfish. Usually, she let them order for her, made them feel good about it. But this one, she looked up over the menu at his sanctimonious little face, thought of him goggling away at that arse in the station. Monkfish. Flabby white fish flesh, claggett in a cream sauce. Every restaurant had to have an option for unadventurous diners, and it was also the cheapest dish on the menu. Filet mignon, she said. Rare. Bloody. And she smiled all the judgment off the waiter's mouth. I just found myself craving some red meat. He shifted his skinny backside about in the chair. You don't mind, Charles? That cough. I'll be right back, she said. Slink, slink, across the floor and through. He might not have been watching her walk, but everyone else was, and he knew it. For all the hotel's cut glass and crystal, its dark-leaved palm fronds and leather, the toilets were terrible. Cracked tiles and that cheap, frazzling light. There was a sharp draft from under the single formica stall, the sort of weak thing you could kick down with one sturdy boot. Fur coat, no knickers, her mother muttered. Yeah, shut up, Mum. She planned to avoid it, but her eyes went to the mirror automatically for the check. Thick, stale peach crust, the horrified grimace of a death mask sitting into her features underneath it. Eye bags with wobbly lines crayoned on. She turned and turned her head and could find nothing lovely about that face. It's just the light, it's just the light, it's just the lighting, she told herself. Watch those clown lips say. No wonder the gentleman doesn't want anything to do with you, eh? Look at you, look at yourself, you fucking... Of course, his name wasn't really Glenn. She looked him up online. He was a footballer, Spanish parents but raised here. Pictures of him began appearing in magazines she duly took out subscriptions to. Hair gelled, sweaty at a couple of parties, herded out of nightclubs, clearly uneasy with the lenses trained on him and the legs of last year's Miss Scotland. Not that they'd ever looked that happy together. He continued to ripple his torso, his beautiful arms across hoardings, sun-drenched commercials and glossy centrefolds, though. pouting sensually over a variety of beef dishes. When the PR company who birthed him announced they were replacing the kilt with more neutral clothes so as not to alienate a London audience, the outraged column inches had filled 4 A4 pages of her scrapbook. She breathed out with him again, took him back with her across the floor. Charles gave a nasty wee smile to nowhere as she eased her hips back under the table, but she kept her head up this time. Someone had topped up her wine, not him, presumably. The night off she could have been having, curled up with Glenn and her fingers on the sofa, a couple of bottles of wine and the farm sweet smell of herself. She drained the whole glass. Fuck it. Now, Charles, I presume you've made yourself familiar with the various packages that we offer, so why don't you give me a little more of an idea of what I can do for you? Sometimes at work she'd whisper to him in her head, "Isn't it a shame, Glenn, that most Scottish men don't really look like you?" He wouldn't ever say anything. That was the beauty of Glenn, the silent beauty of him. But he'd stroke his hot bull breath into her neck like foreplay. Behind the door she heard noises, imagined him puttering in socks and boxers as she reclined, Glenn grazing between her thighs. Almost shy when he stepped out, Charles was, dropping the hotel bathrobe to reveal the pill already stiffening him. He had come prepared, she thought, how thorough. Even as she yielded and flexed down for him, made her muscles small and turned her brain away. That something sensual and rare was blooming and bursting under her skin. His fingers clawed at her haunches as he kept the rhythm up, cheered himself along with a muttered monologue. That's it. That's it. Oh yes, that's it. Take it. Fucking take it. Fucking take it, you whore. From the pit of her stomach, Glenn lowed deep. She snorted, burled her head round flash fast, and felt the blood pool on her tongue as she sunk her teeth into the surprisingly toned, succulent flesh of his upper arm. Thank you. So there's another story, but do we maybe not have enough time? Yeah, it's fast. Okay, so I was trying to give you 2 pictures of Scotland, or the 2 most Scottish bits of my writing. Every year, between the ages of 8 and 16, every child in a Scottish school in December is made to learn Scottish country dancing instead of sport. And kids hate it, they hate it, but it's forced on all of us. And I thought this was quite interesting as just a means of getting through to our national identity. So this is from the point of view of an entire class of 14-year-olds.
I'll just briefly summarize what you said.
Oh, okay, sure.
Takže pro ty, co to ještě nestihli, co tam stihli pochytit nebo nerozuměli, jde o to, že ve Skotsku se děti ve věku zhruba 14 let musí povinně učit skotské tance. V nějakém období bylo to period of time? Takže mezi 8 a 16 lety se musí učit skotské tance a ty děti to nenávidí. Tato povídka je zajímavá hlavně v tom, to říkám já, že je vyprávěna to autorka by vysvětlit. Že je vyprávěna z pohledu celé té třídy.
What is the point? They all whispered to each other. The teacher said, you'll need a wee refresher before the Christmas dance, eh? But they'd actually got in a DJ for the Christmas dance, which they were actually having in the upstairs room of that M8 nightclub this year. And Karen Fife had actually not got knocked back by the bouncers there last week, although a hissed, high-pitched rumour said it was just because her mum was shagging the owner. But anyway, shut up, right? That's how we got it for the dance in the first place. And Laura White's got a gold top she's wearing with her new white jeans. As the gothic kids scowled and rolled their eyes at the Kate Day peeling the laces slowly out of her Doc Martens. Will you come on, girls? The odd giggle breaks ranks, and Miss Reynolds, you have to remember not to call her Mrs. de Ball anymore, shoots it down with a whip-crack look because her face is much harder this turn. Fuck her anyway, Sarah won't carry, not surprised her man left her. But really, you're too busy adjusting your bra so the padding doesn't stick out, or pulling up your shorts, or sticking fingers in the corner of your eyes, mascara, or whispering to Emma Folks, how does my hair look, is it okay? Because in 8 seconds, Mrs. de Ball would open the door and you would all file into the hall, which still smelled of old sweat and rubber and the rotted bits of those sashes they made you wear for basketball. And you would go and find the seats on the benches along the wall, and the door on the other side would open, and in come the boys. What is the point? They all whisper to each other. Staring straight ahead, not looking at each other as you change because you don't want to be called a gay, and you don't even want to see the other boys' dicks anyway, not just to check. James Gibson picks up Daniel Hopkins' crap trainers, holds them above his head till he gets bored because no one's laughing today. The pressed washing powder of gym kit mingles with sour rank fart smell, and somebody cackles, "You manky bastard." Mr. Collins, how come we have to do this again? We're not even having a Kaylee at our Christmas dance this year. Well, Stephen, you'll use these dances as adults. These are important skills you're learning. But we already know them, sir. Yeah, we've done them for years. We started doing them in primary, sir. Mr. Collins doesn't answer, just chuckles and wanders up. Hurry up there, boys. Still, you couldn't help but notice there were less skivers than usual PE classes. Not as many girls bringing notes from their mums written in Katie Cooper's left hand on snipped daughter paper in the back of maths, staring nervy little Mr. Henderson straight in the eyes and saying, "Women's trouble." Not as many boys just not turning up at all. "Look at Emma Fox's tits in that t-shirt. I bet you she's not even wearing a bra. I bet you I can make her bounce." Mostly, though, the boys are quiet because country dancing is really embarrassing. So everybody hears James Gibson above the scuffling as you sit, Emma Fox shouting, "As if you wee ginger scrotum," across the hall, but going pure red and crossing her arms over her chest anyway, total beamer. Mr. Collins, sensing trouble 30 seconds too late as ever, wanders over with his neck out like a giraffe in glasses, saying, "What's the trouble here?" Mr. Collins, who called his wife his partner when he had you for guidance, who would be found in his car in your 6th year with a hosepipe through the window. It wasn't until Mr. Henderson has the bright idea of putting the tape player on to shut everybody up, all those fuzzy, creaky old bagpipes or whatever they were playing the first chord, and he and Miss Reynolds actually bowing to each other, oh my God, that you all remembered, like you did every year, that country dancing was for fannies. Right, everyone, it's been a year, you might not remember these, so we're going to start you off with a nice, easy one. Gordon Fox and Nora Gordon, although they don't know it, reciting the same litany under their breath. Please, not the, please, not the, please, not the. It's the Gay Gordons. That's a dance. That is actually a dance, it's the Gay Gordons. On the boys' benches, woohoo! Hi, Nat Gordon! James fucking Gibson and Stevie Patterson doing bendy wrists. On the girls' benches, is that true, Nora? Big Kelly Anderson hissing, "Fucking lesbian, better not get anywhere near me." And she was totally looking at your tits in the changing room, Kelly, so she was, wee nippy Karen Fife who you hated. Nora and Gordon both looking at the floor. They'll bump into each other at 42 when Nora's picketing the lawyer's office Gordon works at, avoid each other's eyes for the self-same reason. Mr. Collins, ineffectual at nothingness. Quieten down there. Chord. Mr. Henderson and Miss Reynolds bow to each other again, oh God, and the fiddles start up. Yeah, you'd all forgotten about the fiddles. Mr. Henderson and Miss Reynolds hold each other's hands as far away from each other as possible, Miss Reynolds doing that embarrassing dance teacher thing where she tries to point her toes in trainers, sad eyes. Stevie Patterson rope whistled. Dee deedle 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 dee dee, and a 1, 2, 3, turn back 2, 3. Cherie Robertson and Fiona Donaldson sitting beside each other, eyeing the wall above Ryan Woodbridge's head. Ryan, the only boy too cool to change out of his Doc Martens and skinny jeans for it. Ryan with his stoned grin and his mohawk and his beautiful, soulful eyes. Cherie and Ryan in a bar, both 29 after he messaged her on Facebook. He almost wouldn't recognise her in the suit and she wouldn't recognise him with the beard. And having never spoken at school, they wouldn't have very much to say to each other until the drink kicked in. By which time they were too pissed for the sex to be any good, and she'd leave before he woke, embarrassed. Forward 2, 3, and back 2, 3. Elaine Mackenzie flutters her fingers across the hall to Ali Mackay, who waves back, although he looks a bit embarrassed, and Laura White whispers to Laura Lyle, "They actually totally did it last week." And actually she thinks she's pregnant because even though it went soft, she said there was a bit of wet stuff on the end of it. and spin, and spin, and spin, and spin. Just the ladies spin, remember, third year, not the gentlemen. And polka, 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 polka. Stevie Patterson whispered to Fraser Green that Ali Kelly totally rode Elaine Mackenzie last week. And Fraser Green went red, total beamer, hoped he wouldn't get hard. He was getting hard. He was getting hard. And the music had stopped and they were about to make them stand up. Oh shit. Okay, third year, anyone need to see that again? No, I don't think you do, Mr. Gibson. All right, into the centre and take your partners for the don't say it again, please. Gay Gordons! And you cluster together, looking at walls and shoes and the scabby football goals taped on the floor, and all the proper long-term couples like Ali Kelly and Elaine Mackenzie, Paul Hume and Susan White, Katie Cooper and Callum all pair off silently and are co-opted into the big invisible circle that only Mr. Henderson can see. And then there is the awful bit where nobody speaks. 5 girls stare hopefully at Chris Wood, who is gorgeous, picks Karen Fife? And Mr. Collins says something hearty and awful like every year. I'm going to have to pair you off myself if you don't get cracking third year. Would have thought you were too old for this by now. And this meant you could go with a boy or a girl who you were friends with a bit now, so that was all right. Craig Thomas, Anna Wiley, Sarah Urban, Ben Parnell, Ryan Woodbridge is asking Samira Mesbah. Oh. And then you notice it's getting scarce and you have to just ask anybody because nobody wants to get left with Rosemary Stewart with her scabby face and her big posh voice answering all the man's questions right. Or wee smelly Philip Forrest who got a hard on watching Lindsay McGovern in the pool that time in first year. Those two end up dancing together like they always do. Ooh, got yourself a hot one there, eh, Philly? Rosemary Stewart grew elephant skin, ignored the catcalls, headed straight for a pure maths degree at Cambridge, where people with big posh voices like her would never quite take her to her hearts. And she hoped, when she gave it any thought at all, that it was just because she'd gone to a state school. Everyone into the circle now, settle down, third year. Chord. The skipping and the turning comes naturally now because you danced this dance twice a week every December since you were 8. It lies there in you, seeps back through your skin at the weirdest times, usually at weddings. Autopilot. At Sarah Irvin's, her new English husband's sister will ask you to show her the dances by way of asking you to speak with her, and you'll grin, explain her through the Grey Gordons, hamming up the accent, saying, it was practically whipped into you at our school. This is the closest to a race memory that our generation's got, and you'll laugh, put her close to the boca. But right now, Emma Fox's actual tits are beside you, and you can see them moving, and you're going to get hard again, you know you are. Until James Gibson pushes Fiona Donaldson off him and goes, you just farted! And everyone stops and laughs, and Fiona Donaldson runs off through the girls' door with Mrs. Duval behind her. And the music carries on the tape, deedle, 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 while Mr. Collins marches James Gibson out through the boys' door with a finger behind his scarlet ear as red as his hair. Carry on, third year, and back 2, 3, 4, nerdy Daniel Hopkins actually counting under his breath. Can't believe you have to dance with him, just don't look, it'll be over soon. And forward 2, 3, 4 as Paul Brown's meaty fat arms are turning tiny Michelle Sheck, who looks like a bird, will get pregnant and drop out before the standard grades. Paul Brown, first of the year to die, heart attack after too much cocaine, age 23 you heard. This is, just because I asked you to dance doesn't mean I fancy you, right? As if, Michelle says that, I've got a boyfriend at St. Tam's anyway. Both of them lying. And spin, and Laura Gordon is getting annoyed with the way lanky, stupid Ian Christie just stands there when he's supposed to be twirling her. Wondered why it has to be girl's stupid boy partners anyway, stupid homophobic school system. Looks shyly over his stupid arm at Alice Armstrong, whose lips taste of white lightning cider, were sweet and cold behind a tree when you were both coming back from the shop to the benches with more cider on Saturday night. And polka, Stevie Patterson is suddenly laughing and driving you straight into John Wilson and Heather Kilpatrick ahead of you, and he's shouting, pile on! And you all fall over. Miss Reynolds running straight into the centre, not speaking, just blowing her whistle for ages, and the tape does a final chord. And you all let go of each other's hands immediately.
Tak, teď je, jestli nás slyší dohodit, tak je čas na vaše dotazy, co byste se rádi zeptali autorky. A ještě možná mikrofon, že aby někdo...
Já vám vždycky ten mikrofon podám do publika, aby byly ty vaše dotazy slyšet taky na sítích.
Takže první otázka.
Před několika lety se v české televizi vysílal anglický, chcete-li britský, ale myslím, že spíš anglický seriál BBC o Keltech. A v jednom tom díle anglický univerzitní profesor řekl krásnou otázku, co to ti Skotové chtějí. Tak bych chtěl jako Moravák říct, že takto hloupé otázky si na Moravě nekládete, a přestože někteří z nás mluví asi hůře skotsky než ve Skotsku, tak my víme, co ve Skotsku chtějí. A chtěl bych se když jenom zeptat, jestli také ve Skotsku ví, co chceme na Moravě.
On Czech television there was a British series called Celt, and there was a professor who asked the question, what do the Scots want? And then we Moravians, I was confused in that moment, but
Do you understand what the Scots
actually want. So co opravdu chtějí?
And my question is if also Scots understand what we as a Moravian nation want.
So you can try to answer what do you think that Moravians as a part of this country want? And what Scottish want?
And my remark was that so stupid questions what Scots want we need not know. So excuse me, I think we Moravians speak not so good Scottish as you.
I guess does everybody in the audience know that in September Scotland will have a referendum to decide whether or not it will be separate from England and from the whole of the UK, not just England. Because that situation seems similar, I think, from what I understand. In Scotland it's a...
Že, nevím, jestli to víte, ale že v září bude taková velká událost ve Skotsku a jde o to, že budou mít referendum, kde budou hlasovat o tom, jestli se Skotsko oddělí od celé Velké Británie.
So that question seems similar to me based on what I understand. I think Scotland we're looking to just become a small self-determining country. We want to just have the freedom to look after our people and kind of bring in green, possibly left-wing laws that protect our health service and our education, and we want to get rid of nuclear weapons, and we want to welcome immigrants into the country. And these are all quite at odds with England and the Westminster government wants to sign. So this is the basis for a referendum.
Takže podle toho, co jako slyšela o Moravě ode mě, když si vyvaroval předtím, že to trošičku podobné. Ale že vlastně jim v tom referendu půjde o to, že ta jejich země chce být taková malá země, která bude mít svobodu starat se o své lidi a zavést politiky, které by byly levicovější, zelenější, politiky, které by se staraly o zdraví lidí, které by nepodporovaly jaderné zbraně a podporovaly by příval migrantů nebo imigrační politiku.
So yeah, I mean I guess that's what Scots want just now. I wonder, I kind of understand there might be a little similarity between the countries.
Takže hádám, že tohle je to, co Skotové vlastně chtějí a že možná v tomhle tak trochu bude ta podobnost.
Předám mikrofon dalšímu.
I would like to touch your story because you are a writer here, firstly, and you were telling us or reading us that the kids are not in particular fond of folk dances or Scottish dancing. So do the kids want independence?
Sorry.
You have told us in your story that kids have big troubles when they are forced to study how to learn how to dance Scottish dancing.
Yeah.
So does really everybody want to be separated?
Well, this election is open. We have opened our suffrage for the first time to 16 and 17-year-olds, and I think, as with the rest of the country, it's round about. Right now, I would say it's about 48% yes, 51% no, and a small proportion of undecided people. The polls change all the time. There's a movement called Generation Yes, which is for 121, and they are very active. They are out there campaigning. There's many of them, and they're putting on concerts, and they're going around knocking on doors, and they're organising parties to kind of advocate for a yes vote. The country is very much split on this, so half the kids yes, half the kids no, as well everybody. Yeah.
Takže co se týče otázky, jestli ty děti, ty mladší Skotové chtějí mít tu nezávislost, tak vlastně co se týče těch voleb, nedávno Skotsko povolilo volit i 16 a 17 letým dětem nebo dospělým. A podle průzkumu, které se neustále mění, to vypadá, že 48% lidí by hlasovalo pro odtržení Skotska. A existuje hnutí, které se jmenuje Yes, a je to hnutí pro Skoty, kteří jsou mladší než 21 let a neustále pořádají nějaké kampaně a pořádají párty a chodí mezi lidi a snaží se přesvědčit k tomu, aby hlasovali pro to odtržení. Že by mohli úplně co udělat.
Tak jestli je ve Skotsku normální ta větší odtažitost těch dvou pohlaví než v Česku,
Nice question, but in Scotland the separation or the distance between the two sexes, especially in teenage kids, is normal, or is it taken or closer?
I think it's just normal for teenage kids. With the Scottish country dances, it was always very strange because the boys and the girls are in the same classes all the time. There are very few segregated sex schools in Scotland, but you would be filtered out into your dressing rooms to get into your gym kit, and then you would be filtered in, and the boys sat up one side and the girls the other. And this was only for Scottish country dancing, because the schools, back when I was at school anyway, the schools used to insist that only boys and girls could dance together, and so you had to be lined up and paired off, and forced to be paired off. But I think that's just teenagers all over the world. It's not a thing particular to Scottish.
Nemyslím si, že by ta odtažitost byla přímo jenom skotská, ale že to je záležitost teenagerů po celém světě. A že v podstatě jde o to, že ty tance byly vždycky úplně podivné, protože do té třídy nahrali i dívky, i ty chlapce. A v Skotsku nebyly nikdy školy, které by jako ty pohlaví oddělovaly. A probíhalo to tak, že vlastně oni ty děti nahnali nejdřív z jedné šatny chlapce, z jedné šatny dívky, a potom se seřadili do řád a proti sobě na jedné straně chlapce, na druhé straně dívky, potom se seřadili do řád a potom je spárovali. Stačilo vám takhle?
from your short stories, I've got the feeling that your writing style is kind of experimental, especially your second short story, in the way James Joyce was writing. Are you I mean, this stream of speech which goes on and on. Do you think are you influenced directly by him, or indicate like?
Yes.
I mean.
That second piece is not necessarily typical of my work. I was at the time I was trying to write in the rhythm of a dance, and that was actually quite a slow performance of that. Usually I would perform it like so that was an experiment for me, trying to write in the rhythm of a dance. I'm currently turning that piece into a play. But yes, I mean, obviously, I read Ulysses at university, and I really, really loved the formal experimentation that changed from chapter to chapter. I think it's an enormously exciting book, and I think a lot of people are put off it because they go, oh, Ulysses, yeah, everybody's got to read Ulysses. My boyfriend for one. But it's a joyous book. It's a shame that it's become so academicized. So yeah, you know that. Because I think that book is wonderful and exciting and yeah. So yes, that's a lovely thing to say. I think I'm nothing like James Joyce talent-wise, but thank you.
Děkuji za kompliment, v podstatě za přirovnání k Spisovi, protože si myslím, že nemůžu se s ním srovnávat, ale to je velice milé, že to říkáte. Říkala vlastně, že tahle povídka není úplně typická, že to není úplně ta druhá, kterou četla, není úplně typická ukázka jejího psaní, a že jejím hlavním úmyslem bylo napsat ji v rytmu toho skotského tance, takže hodně rychle napsat jako ty slova. A to, co jste vlastně slyšeli, bylo poněkud pomalejší, než to obvykle čte. Takže tento experimentální povídka je založena na tom, že čte podle rytmu skotského tance, nebo aby tak vyznívala. Nedávno ji předělala na divadelní hru. Short or long? Is the play short?
It's going to be a full-length play.
Takže to bude celovečerní hra, to bude vlastně tady.
I'm going to make the audience split boys and girls.
Určitě, že budou diváci sedět dívky a ženy a muži naproti sobě. A jinak vlastně o tom Joyceovi říkala, že to je samozřejmě genius a tak, že samozřejmě na univerzitě se o něm učila, o té jeho experimentaci s formou, ale že je škoda, že spousta lidí je tím odrazena, protože každý musí číst a musí každý vidět, jak je to moc geniální a tady to přílišná akademizace tomu vlastně škodí.
Prosím, když budete pokládat otázku anglicky, tak jestli byste se sami rovnou nepřekládali. Všichni nemusí umět anglicky, tady tak to asi jednodušší.
Já se přiložím hned. Vy jste, jako, tady bylo asi 1000 autorů, ale vy vyhráváte v rychlosti, jste nejrychlejší autorka, kterou jsme tady zatím měli. A mám pocit, že i váš tlumočník, překladatel, tlumočník je stejně rychlý jako vy, tak vám gratuluji, přátelé. A moje otázka je to vlastně ty autorská čtení probíhají u vás, jestli, jaká témata tam probíráte, jak to zaměřujete, protože je to takový, jak tady čtete třeba deváťákům, takovýhle povídky tam.
That was a very nice question, and some compliments included. But, they've seen 1,000 authors here, and Pavel thinks you're the fastest of all, and congratulates you to that. Yeah, he also mentioned me, but and his question is about the authors readings you do in Scotland. Because we've already mentioned, že jsme se zmínili, že i Kirstin pořádá autorská přednášení. So they are interested in the topics and on the focus of your readings. And for example, if they aim also what kind of age groups they aim at, and if they aim at those primary school kids.
Oh yeah. There is too much there. The events that I run, I've run since 2010. I've run, the best way to describe it is a cabaret night. It's not quite right. Called Words Per Minute. And the idea is that you have 7 or 8 acts. You pay a small amount of money, very small, cover fee, and you get 7 or 8 acts. And most of them are writers. Some of them are musicians. Sometimes we show short films. Occasionally we have theatre, one-man theatre. But the thing about Words Per Minute is everybody only gets 10 minutes. I think I probably did just there. I think authors can go on too long when they read. So we give them 10 minutes to become involved. And I can answer the theme question later.
Tak nejdřív k tomu formátu toho čtení, toho konkrétního čtení, které se jmenuje Words Per Minute, slova za minutu. Bohužel to těm dětem nemůžou nějak přednášet, protože tam příliš spustých slov. A formátem se to blíží kabaretu v podstatě. Mají tam 7 až 8 vystupujících a návštěvníci zaplatí opravdu malou částku. A většina z těch vystupujících jsou spisovatelé. Občas tam mají nějakého muzikanta a občas pustí nějaký krátký film. A když se na to naskytne, tak tam mají třeba nějakého divadelníka, který zahraje nějakou etidu. Nápad vlastně tohoto čtení spočívá v tom, že každému dají 10 minut, protože někteří ti spisovatelé se umí rozkecat, tak aby se nemluvili, tak je vlastně zarazí, aby všichni měli stejný prostor. A teď další vlastně vysvětlení bude k těm tématům.
So the kind of literary cabaret night has become very popular in Scotland. It seems to be an increasingly popular way. It has its roots in a particular kind of Scottish tradition which is called Hayley. Hayley is also the word for Scottish country dancing, but this means something different, where people would gather around and one person would sing a song, one person would read a poem, one person would tell a story. So this is a kind of modern version of it. Each month we try to have a theme. So one night we did Words Per Minute sex, and we got people reading erotica. Another night we did Words Per Minute home, where we teamed up with the Scottish Refugee Council, and immigrant musicians and stand-up comics and writers talking about their idea of what home was. And so yeah, we would choose a theme, but generally Scottish writers swear a lot, so it's not so suitable for under 18s. It would be fun to do one for kids actually. It would be a fun thing to do, but no swearing.
I think kids can stand lots of things. Yeah. Takže co se týče těch témat, tak na začátek vlastně zmínila, že ta událost je čím dál tím populárnější. Dokonce některá rádia označila za jednu z nejpopulárnějších událostí podobného druhu v Anglii, v Británii. A ta myšlenka té události se trošku odráží od takzvané tradice Cayley, což je i název pro ty skotské tance, ale nejsou to jen ty skotské tance, je to v podstatě takové shromáždění rodiny a přátel, takže v podstatě i ta akce funguje tímto způsobem, že se lidi nějak sejdou a ukazují, co umí. Takže někdo přečte básně, někdo zatancuje, někdo něco zahraje a tak dále. A tuto akci pořádají každý měsíc a občas nějaké téma určí. Takže když bylo téma sex, tak někdo četl erotickou prózu, erotické básně, když bylo téma domov, tak tam pozvali uprchlíky, aby imigranty, aby povídali nějaké vlastní názory, aby zahráli vlastní hudbu a nechali ty spisovatele a stand-up komiky, aby promluvili o své myšlence domova, o tom, co si myslí, že je domov. Takže témata jako promýšlí a pracují na nich a obecně skotští autoři nadávají podcastovali, že udělat se pro ty děti nešlo, ale že by to bylo určitě zajímavá myšlenka udělat výjimku a udělat nějaké takové čtení pro děti.
Dobrý večer. Já bych se zeptal, jaké jsou vaše literární vzory? Zdali hledáte svůj vlastní hlas v literatuře, nebo se zasazujete do nějaké již existující tradice na Skotsku?
Okay. Yes. So good evening. I'd like to ask you about your idols or about your if you observe some literary tradition, or if you're more looking to find your own voice in the literature within the Scottish literature.
Kind of half and half. There was a great revolution in Scottish literature in the 80s and 90s. A book that I think you might have heard of as Trainspotting, or yeah. That changed the way everybody sees Scotland. But what was interesting about that book, I don't know how it works in translation, but if you read that book in the original, it's not written in English, it's written in Scots, which is the kind of it's not a dialect, it's more than a dialect, it's how Scottish people speak. It's the same form of language with the same roots as English, but they just kind of evolved separately over the years. And in Scotland now we have learned to speak English. Everybody speaks English, but we can also slip very quickly into Scots. I know a lot of people who were really excited by that book. The book, the play, and the film all came out together. I was 15 when Trainspotting came out, and it was enormously exciting. The film, not the book. This was Scottish people looking like movie stars on a big screen. We didn't have that in Scotland, and it kick-started tell me if you want to start.
Okay, we can go on after that, yeah. Takže je to tak 50/50, co se týče těch vlivů a toho vlastního hlasu, ale možná si někteří jste vědomí, možná tam zase tak známý fakt není. Ve skotské literatuře došlo v 80. a 90. letech k revoluci a tu revoluci, dá se říct, způsobil román, který je a ten změnil v podstatě úplně všechno. Autorka sice neví, jak funguje ten překlad v našem kulturním prostředí, ale u nich jde o to, že to je napsané v skotském jazyce, to je napsané v skotském jejich jazyce, který se nedá považovat jenom za dialekt, ale že to je v podstatě na úrovni angličtiny, protože má to společný základ a ty jazyky se vyvíjely každý zvlášť. A samozřejmě jí bylo 15, když ta kniha vyšla, a když viděla ten film a byla naprosto nadšená, stejně jako spousta dalších lidí ve Skotsku. A nejúžasnější na tom bylo, že tam vlastně na filmovém plátně vidíte v životní velikosti skotské lidi. Skoti vlastně byli poprvé v televizi, jako televizní hvězdy. Nadsázku samozřejmě.
The effect that Trainspotting had on our psyche was very exciting. Publishers were suddenly interested in the sort of risk-taking experimental work that Scottish writers have been putting together very quietly for decades. And so there was this whole new blossoming of Scottish talent in the 90s. Writers like Urban Welsh, yes, but also Janice Galloway, James Kelman, A.L. Kennedy, Ali Smith, Jackie Jacobs, hundreds of them. And because that was when I was a teenager then, so I started reading grown-up books at that time, and it was I realised it's a very unusual thing as a Scot now for the grown-up books that you move on to as a teenager to be actually Scottish literature. It was this enormously confident, experimental, playful time. And those writers' works have really influenced me. But I think that some writers who were maybe younger than me haven't necessarily got that confidence, certainly. Because this was a sudden flowering before the publishing world decided, oh yeah, we've done Scotland now, we'll move on. The writers are still trying to experiment, they're just doing it on smaller scales. I think this is possibly the popularity of the literature nights, and you can write something and experiment and try it out.
Že k tomu vlivu se vlastně dostaneme teď, a že jak bylo zmíněno, ten spotting nadchl lidi a nadchl i vydavatele, jako nakladatelství, které začaly přednostňovat autory, kteří byli trošku kteří se nebáli zariskovat a psali prózu, která byla experimentálnější. Takže v těch 90. letech taková literatura byla docela obvyklá, byla vlastně takový ten mainstream. Zmínila několik jmen, které jsme možná postřelili, James Galloway a stovky dalších. To snad bys nezabral. A samozřejmě bylo to trošku neobvyklá doba pro mě, protože v této době, kdy ta skotská literatura zažívala tuto obrodu, tak byla teenager a proto vlastně neměla ty stejné podmínky jako třeba mladší autoři. Takže ona v podstatě v té své tvorbě se vyjistá a ví, že ta tvorba může být taková hravá, že může riskovat, protože vlastně vyrůstala v tomto prostředí. A že vidí to i na mladších autorech, že třeba nejsou tak úplně, že se trošičku drží zpátky, ale že ten trend té riskantní, té hravé literatury experimentální pořád trvá a pořád pokračuje. Jestli můžeme dostat si otázku nějakou od ženy.
Teda poslední 3 otázky, protože na chvíli bude následovat další 4, ještě 3 otázky. Předostávám.
Když se zeptala na tu úvodní povídku, předpokládám, že ta inspirace byla ta konkrétní reklama, ale chtěla bych se zeptat, jestli z těch motivů si hraje skotská reklama jako častěji.
So the question, thank you. The question is about the first short story you read, and it's about the advertisement. If it's the way that the TV treats Scottish people normally, if it's only like an upstanding example, or if it's the same.
Scottish people in UK television tend to be invisible. Unless a soap opera needs a villain with a psychopath, or unless they want to use our landscapes, our beautiful hills and mountains. I find this advert very interesting. Nobody in Scotland wears kilts except at weddings, but this is kind of it's a very small stereotype. Oh, a man striding about in a kilt. It's shorthand for it's a lazy shorthand from the UK to Scotland, I think. But yeah, this is why this advert was so interesting to me. This strange romanticised, but also I don't know, kind of simplified version of the country for somebody else's consumption.
Že obvykle a obecně Skoti jsou v televizi, která je britská, jsou neviditelní, takže tam se neobjevují. Tedy pokud nepotřebují do nějaké mýlové opery dosadit nějakého psychopatického zloducha, který by mohl hrát Skot. A nebo když se jim hodí ty krajiny vlastně skotské, takže tam ten štáb přijde a natáčí ty překrásné skotské záběry z přírody. Vlastně tam v té reklamě byl jeden z klasických stereotypů, což je kilt, že v Skotsku nikdo takto kilt nenosí. A celá ta reklama vlastně byla taková stereotypická, že jenom jako stělesnila ten názor těch Angličanů, který jako ten stereotyp, ten předsudek, který Angličani mohou mít. Takže to nebyla jako nějak úplně extra promyšlená reklama, ale autorku zaujala způsob, se kterým tato reklama navozovala takovou romantickou a zjednodušenou atmosféru. zjednodušenou pro uživatele.
Oh, the series, yeah. The picture of Glenn, the actor, it was everywhere, just hunky farmer sitting there, all over the whole of the UK, with beef beside him. It was that's not comedy.
Že to není bohužel komedie, protože ten herec, ten Glenn, ty fotky byly po celé Anglii, po celé Velké Británii a tak vlastně toho muže hovězího.
The other point that I made in the story is that Glenn, that's not a Scottish name. We have Glens, they are a geographical feature, but Glenn is an American name, not a Scottish name, so it's a kind of, it's an interesting adverb.
Dalším zajímavým faktem je, že Glenn není skotské jméno, to je jméno americké, přestože slovo Glenn ve skotštině existuje a je to slovo, které znamená údolí. Myslím si. Kdo připravil tu povídku?
Dobrý večer. Mně připadá trošku, že jste taková uražená, nebo ty takový jste uražený. Takový patrioti, na který si hrajete a opravdu máte tu volitelnost, nebo tu aktivitu politickou už od daného mládí, kdy můžete volit. Děkuji.
Okay, so this might be a bit tricky for me. But the claim here is that you as a nation might seem a little bit offended, or like
the word that we use is chippy.
Chippy.
Yeah, I think that's what's getting at. Yeah, it's just right now we're engaged in a referendum, which is kind of it's going deep into examining our national identity, I guess. In my writing, I'm interested in looking at how that national identity is maybe constructed. Is it sort of built up, manufactured thing as much as anything? I guess, yeah, Scots have always been accused of having a grievance. It's a well-known stereotype. The thing is, though, it's we are quite put upon as a country. We have a lot of kind of ongoing struggles. I don't think the grievance is unfounded necessarily, but I can see your point. I will stop this line of conversation.
Takže co se týče toho jejich uraženosti, že si toho je vědomá, že se to o Skotech tak jako říká. A přiznává, že to není tak úplně nepodložené, a že by to možná něco mohlo mít do sebe, ale že v podstatě v tom Skotsku pořád neustále dochází k nějakým šarvátkám a nějakým nesrovnalostem a tak dále, takže zrovna teď žijí tím referendem, které v podstatě do hloubky prozkoumává tu jejich národní identitu, což je jedno z témat, které autorka zkoumá taky a zvažuje, jestli ta národní identita je, že vlastně dochází k tomu, že ta národní identita je v podstatě vytvořená, že je vybudovaná nějakým způsobem.
I think possibly that's like sense of grievance is built into our national identity these days, and I think a lot of us are excited about the possibility of standing alone and not having anybody else to blame for our problems, so we can sort ourselves.
Takže uznává, že možná, že ta uraženost je součástí jejich národní identity, ale že na druhou stranu jí přijde, že spousta lidí je nadšených, že by se ze Skotska mohlo stát samostatný stát, který by nemusel na nikoho svádět vinu.
Tak když je to poslední dotaz a jste první autorka ze Skotska, tak já bych se zeptal úplně natvrdo v rámci toho referenda, ano nebo ne. So I'll just translate that. You're the first of 31 or 30 more to come. It's scary, isn't it? And this is the last question, so it's a very simple question. Independence, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.